Washerwomen. Have you ever felt like you're being watched when you're completely alone? That inexplicable sensation that unseen eyes are following you or that something from beyond our world is trying to make contact? Turn off the lights. Put on your headphones. Because these stories will make you never sleep alone again. Au revoir mes amis, à demain. Lucas Morgan, a 34-year-old American freelance photographer, waved goodbye to his friends at a local pub in downtown Rouen, Normandy. Having moved to France 3 years ago, Lucas had found a small community of fellow artists and locals. Tonight they had gathered to celebrate his newest photography collection of Normandy landscapes being accepted for exhibition at a prestigious gallery in Paris. The pub door closed behind him, cutting off the warm music and laughter, and Lucas was suddenly faced with the cold silence of an October night. The temperature had dropped significantly while he sat in the pub, and now his breath formed small clouds in the frigid air. "Should have called a taxi," Lucas muttered to himself, pulling his black leather jacket tighter and wrapping a dark blue wool scarf around his neck. The checkered shirt and brown pants he was wearing weren't warm enough for this sudden cold. But his apartment in the southern part of the city wasn't too far, about 16 blocks across the St. Pierre Bridge spanning the Seine River, then a short distance more. He had walked this route hundreds of times before. Lucas checked his watch, nearly 1 a.m. The streets were almost completely empty at this hour, with only the echo of his footsteps on the ancient cobblestone streets. Streetlights cast a dim yellow glow, creating long, sharp shadows. As he walked past the old buildings with their distinctive medieval and Renaissance architecture, Lucas couldn't help but feel like he was walking through history. Rouen, with its famous Gothic cathedral and historic landmarks, was one of Normandy's most historically rich cities, a region famous for stories of William the Conqueror, Joan of Arc, and ancient Celtic and Viking legends. But tonight, the city's glorious history seemed to take on a grimmer aspect. The ancient stone walls and wooden window frames became eerie in the darkness. Lucas wasn't a timid person, but he couldn't help feeling an unusual unease as he passed through the dark streets. "It's just the cold," he told himself, trying to dismiss the chill running down his spine. But it wasn't just the weather's cold that was bothering him. There was something else, a strange feeling that he was being watched. Warnings from his French friends echoed in his mind. They had always advised against walking alone too late, especially in deserted areas. Though Rouen was a relatively safe city, street crime still occurred, especially on weekend nights. Lucas placed his hands in his jacket pockets, feeling reassured when he touched his phone and wallet. He quickened his pace, eager to reach the bridge. Once across, it was just a short distance to his cozy apartment. As he turned a corner, the road leading to the St. Pierre Bridge appeared before him. In the dim streetlight, the ancient stone bridge spanning the Seine River looked like a sleeping monster. Across the bridge, the lights from the high-rise buildings of the southern district twinkled like distant stars. Just a few more minutes, Lucas told himself, his breath creating white clouds in the cold night air. When Lucas approached the bridge, a soft sound rang out in the still air, making him stop. It was the gentle splashing of water, but not from the flowing river below. The sound seemed to come from the riverbank, where a small path led down to the water's edge. With the curious nature of a photographer, Lucas tilted his head, listening. There was another sound, fabric rubbing together as if someone was washing clothes. Strange, considering the late hour and freezing temperature. "Is anyone there?" Lucas called, his voice echoing in the empty space. No answer came, but the sounds continued. Now Lucas could distinguish it more clearly. It was definitely the sound of someone hand-washing clothes, beating fabric against water, then scrubbing vigorously. "I should keep walking," Lucas told himself. But curiosity won out. He left the main road and followed the sloping path down to the riverbank. This wasn't a decision he would normally make. In fact, part of his brain was screaming in protest, but he felt almost pulled down by an invisible force. As he approached the water's edge, Lucas saw them, 3 women kneeling by the riverside, hands washing in the freezing water. In the dim moonlight, he couldn't see their faces clearly, but he could tell they all wore old-fashioned clothing. Long dresses and cloaks resembling the attire of rural French women from the previous century. "Excuse-moi, mesdames," Lucas called, using his still clumsy French after 3 years living here. "It's late. Aren't you cold?" The women didn't answer. They didn't even look up at him. They continued their washing with a frightening focus, hands vigorously scrubbing items in the water. Lucas moved closer, feeling each step as if fighting through an invisible resistance. The temperature seemed to drop several more degrees as he approached them. Now he could see more clearly what they were washing, dark-colored items, wet and heavy. "Do you need help?" Lucas asked, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Still no answer. Lucas stood just a few meters from them, but these women seemed completely oblivious to his presence. In the moonlight, he still couldn't clearly see their faces, hidden by long hair and old-fashioned bonnets. An uncomfortable feeling spread within Lucas. Something wasn't right about this scene. 3 women kneeling by the freezing river in the middle of the night, washing in silence, completely unresponsive to his presence. This wasn't normal. Lucas took out his phone, intending to use the flashlight to see better, but when he turned it on, the light wasn't as effective as expected. Instead of illuminating the whole scene, the light seemed to be swallowed by the unusual darkness surrounding these women. "C'est quoi ce bordel?" Lucas whispered, using a crude French phrase he had learned. "What the hell is this?" One of the women, the one in the middle, finally looked up. Although he still couldn't see her face clearly, Lucas could feel her eyes staring directly at him. A cold sensation ran down his spine, having nothing to do with the weather. The woman slowly raised the item she was washing. In the moonlight, Lucas finally could see it, a checkered shirt identical to the one he was wearing. His heart skipped a beat. Not only that, but looking more carefully, he realized that the items the other 2 women were washing also looked strangely familiar. A pair of brown pants and a dark blue wool scarf. Exactly what he was currently wearing. Lucas took a step back, feeling afraid for the first time. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. The middle woman still held up the shirt, and now Lucas could see clearly it wasn't river water dripping from the garment. It was a thick, dark red liquid. Blood. "What do you want?" Lucas asked, his voice higher with fear. The woman slowly lowered the shirt and continued washing as if she hadn't heard his question. All 3 women continued their work, scrubbing and beating the blood-soaked garments, creating an eerie sound in the still night. Lucas wanted to run, but his feet seemed unable to move. He stood there as if hypnotized, watching the 3 women wash his clothes he was still wearing on his body. This made no sense. It couldn't make sense. In his mind, a vague memory surfaced, a story that Jean-Pierre, an older French friend, had told him a few months ago as they drank wine by the Seine River. An ancient legend from Normandy about women called les lavandières, the washerwomen. "They appear at night by rivers and streams," Jean-Pierre had said, his voice dropping to a mysterious whisper. "They wash the clothes of those who are about to die. If you see them washing your clothes, it's an omen you will soon depart from this world." At the time, Lucas had laughed and considered it just an interesting folk tale. But now, standing before these 3 mysterious women with his clothes in their hands, the story seemed to take on a terrifying new meaning. "No," Lucas whispered finally, regaining his ability to move. "No, I don't believe it. This isn't real." He turned and began climbing back up the path, his heart pounding in his chest. Behind him, the washing sounds continued a steady and relentless rhythm in the darkness. When he returned to the main road, Lucas paused to catch his breath. He looked down at his clothes, all dry and intact. No sign of blood or river water. "I'm just tired and imagining things," he tried to convince himself. Too much wine and Jean-Pierre's ghost stories. But when he looked back down at the riverbank, he could still see them, 3 shadowy figures, still kneeling at the water's edge, still washing his blood-soaked garments. "Not real," Lucas repeated, his voice shaking. "Not real." He turned his back on the strange scene and walked quickly toward the Saint-Pierre Bridge. The ancient stone bridge stretched ahead, the lights along its railing creating a dim, illuminated path across the dark river below. Lucas quickly crossed the bridge, constantly looking over his shoulder as if afraid the strange women were following him. But there was no one. Only darkness and the sound of wind whistling through the ancient stone columns of the bridge. When he reached the other side, Lucas breathed a sigh of relief. Just a few blocks more to his apartment. He quickened his pace, almost running through the empty streets. His mind was still reeling with images of the three women and his blood-soaked clothes in their hands. "It's all just superstition," he said aloud, as if the sound of his voice could dispel the fear. "Silly stories to scare children." But if it was just superstition, why did he feel such a deep fear? Why was his heart still racing so fast he could hear it in his ears? And why, despite being far from the riverbank, could he still hear that washing sound, as if it had embedded itself in his mind? When Lucas rounded the corner leading to his apartment building, he felt relieved just a few steps more. The five-story building with its classic French architecture appeared ahead windows of other apartments, mostly dark as expected at this hour. But as Lucas drew closer, he noticed two shadowy figures standing in the darkness of the building entrance. His heart beat faster, warning of danger. This neighborhood was usually safe, but at this hour, two strangers standing outside his building was certainly not a good sign. Lucas considered turning back and perhaps finding a 24-hour cafe, but it was too late. One of the men had spotted him and nudged the other. Both began moving toward Lucas with threatening postures. "Hey, American," one of them called in English with a heavy French accent. "Got a light?" Lucas stopped, heart pounding. "I don't smoke," he answered, his voice calmer than he actually felt. "Then perhaps you could lend us some money," the second man said, coming closer. Now Lucas could see them better, two middle-aged men, one tall and thin, the other short and stocky, both wearing old dirty clothes. "I don't have cash," Lucas said half-truthfully. He did have some money in his wallet, but instinct told him that taking out his wallet now wasn't a good idea. "We think differently," the tall man said, his face twisting into a joyless smile. "An American living in such a nice apartment surely has money." Both men came closer, and Lucas noticed a metallic glint. The short man was holding a knife. "Look, I don't want trouble," Lucas said, taking a step back. "You can have my wallet." "And your phone, too," the tall man said. "And that nice leather jacket." Lucas felt a chill run through his body, not because of the threat, but because of a sudden memory of the three women by the riverbank washing his clothes. His blood-soaked clothes. "Les lavandières," he whispered. "What?" the man with the knife asked, frowning. "Nothing." Lucas shook his head, slowly removing his leather jacket. "Here, take it. I'll give you my wallet and phone, too. Just let me go." The tall man smirked. "Good. Throw the jacket over here." Lucas complied, tossing the jacket toward them. The tall man caught it easily. As soon as he did, Lucas took his wallet and phone from his pockets, preparing to throw them as well. But before he could do so, a police siren wailed from the end of the street. A patrol car was approaching, blue and red lights flashing in the night. The two robbers looked at each other in panic. The tall man still held Lucas's jacket, but the one with the knife had already turned ready to flee. "Merde la police," the short man hissed. That was the moment Lucas decided to act. With a quick movement, he lunged at the man holding the knife, hoping to take advantage of their distraction to escape, but he had misjudged the situation. The short man, surprised by Lucas's action, reacted instinctively. The knife in his hand swung up and plunged into Lucas's stomach with an unexpected force. Pain exploded in Lucas's abdomen, cutting off his breath. He staggered backward, hands clutching the wound, feeling warm blood seeping through his fingers. "Idiot!" the tall man hissed at his accomplice. "Let's go." Both robbers ran off, disappearing into a nearby alley, taking Lucas's leather jacket with them. The police car continued moving down the street, the officers inside apparently not noticing what had happened in the shadows. Lucas collapsed on the sidewalk, breathing heavily. He looked down at his hand, seeing the bright red blood flowing from the wound. His checkered shirt was beginning to soak with blood, just like the shirt he had seen in the mysterious woman's hands by the river. "They knew." Lucas whispered, the truth beginning to dawn. "Les lavandières." They knew this would happen. The pain spread, and Lucas felt a coldness radiating from the wound. He tried to stay conscious, knowing he needed to call an ambulance. With shaking, blood-covered fingers, he took his phone from his pants pocket and tried to unlock the screen. But the screen blurred before his eyes, and his hand was too weak to hold the phone tightly. It fell to the sidewalk with a soft thud. Lucas looked up at the night sky, the dim stars above. Thoughts of the three women by the river filled his mind. It hadn't been a hallucination or a dream. It had been a warning, an omen of his fate. In those moments, Lucas recalled what Jean-Pierre had said about les lavandières. They are women cursed to wash the clothes of the dead until Judgment Day. They appear to warn those who are about to die, but the warning is useless because no one can escape their predetermined fate. Predetermined fate. Lucas repeated his voice, just a whisper in the cold night. Somewhere between waking and sleeping, between life and death, Lucas felt himself drifting. The pain from the knife wound had subsided, replaced by a numbness spreading throughout his body. He didn't know how long he had been lying there on the cold sidewalk, blood slowly flowing from the wound in his stomach. A strange feeling pervaded his mind, not fear, but acceptance, as if a deep part of him had known this would happen from the moment he saw the women by the riverbank. In this dreamlike state, Lucas felt himself returning to the Seine riverbank. But this time he wasn't observing the three women washing. He was standing with them, looking into the dark water reflecting the moonlight. "I understand now," he whispered to them. "This is your role, not to warn, but to prepare, to help us accept the inevitable." The middle woman, the one who had held up his shirt, slowly turned her head to look at him. For the first time, Lucas could see her face. Not an old woman's face as he had imagined, but a young, beautiful woman with ancient eyes that had witnessed hundreds, perhaps thousands of deaths. "We were once like you," she said, her voice like wind whispering through trees. "We once lived, loved, feared death. But we didn't listen to the warning when it came, and so we are cursed to warn others, though we know they won't listen either." "Cursed by whom?" Lucas asked. "By time," she answered. "By fate, by the flow of life and death, unceasing, never changing." The other women now also turned to look at him, and Lucas realized they were all young, beautiful, but infinitely sad women. "Why me?" Lucas asked. "Why did you choose to warn me?" "We don't choose," the second woman said. "You are chosen by fate. We are merely messengers." "And now," the third woman said, "you will become part of the cycle." Lucas felt a chill run through him. "I don't understand." "You will," all three women said in unison. The scene dissolved, and Lucas found himself back on the cold sidewalk. But now he no longer felt alone. Someone was kneeling beside him, warm and alive. Sir, are you okay? I've called an ambulance." It was a young voice, a young woman. Lucas tried to open his eyes, but they were too heavy. He could feel her warm hands pressing on his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "You," he tried to speak, his voice just a whisper. "You need to listen." "Don't try to talk," the girl said, her voice full of concern. "The ambulance will be here any minute. You'll be okay." "No," Lucas said, using his last bit of strength to open his eyes. He saw a young, beautiful face leaning over him, brown eyes filled with worry and care. "You must listen. Les lavandières." "The women washing by the river," the girl frowned. "What?" "If you see them," Lucas whispered, "don't stop, don't look, keep walking. Because once you see them washing your clothes, it's already too late." The young woman looked at him with confusion and worry, clearly thinking he was delirious from blood loss. Perhaps he was, but Lucas knew what he had seen, what he had experienced. "My name is Marie," the girl said, perhaps trying to keep him alert by conversing. "I'm an art student. I was just coming back from a party when I found you. You'll be okay, I promise." Lucas smiled weakly. Marie. Beautiful name. He felt life slipping away, but he was no longer afraid. Suddenly he felt a strange peace, as if he were returning home after a long journey. "Merci, Marie," he whispered. "Thank you for being here." He closed his eyes one final time, and in that warm darkness he found himself returning to the riverbank. But this time he wasn't a passerby. He was one of those kneeling by the water hands, washing the blood-soaked clothes of others, preparing them to face their inevitable fate. He had become part of the cycle, a part of les lavandières. 2 weeks later, Marie walked along the Seine River late one night, returning from an art exhibition. She paused when she heard washing sounds from the riverbank. When she looked down, she saw 3 figures, 2 women and a man kneeling at the water's edge. The man looked up, and in the moonlight she recognized the face of Lucas Morgan, the man who had died in her arms 2 weeks earlier. He was washing a blood-soaked jacket, the exact jacket Marie was wearing. As she backed away in terror, she suddenly remembered his last words. Once you see them washing your clothes, it's already too late. The chill that ran through her body had nothing to do with the cold October night, and everything to do with the knowledge that her fate was now sealed just as his had been. And so the cycle continued as it had for centuries along the dark waters of Normandy, where les lavandières, the washerwomen, continued their eternal task, washing the clothes of those marked by death, offering a warning that could never be heeded, a glimpse of a fate that could never be changed.